What is this with Chaol?
He only sleeps with women who then improve their station afterwards.
Wow. So Chaol has some sort of magical place in the universe then.
I think it's more he when after women sleep with him, they think I could do better, and then they reach their full potential.
Oh yeah, like they reevaluate like their whole life.
Welcome to the Bookends, the in-depth book review that you never asked for.
I'm Clayton. I can't read, so these people describe these books to me, and I get the joy of understanding the story.
I'm Katie. I can read. Second time reading the series.
I'm Christine. This is my first time reading the series. I can read too.
I'm Michael. I can read, but only the day before we do this.
We read 2 books this time. Well, you guys did, and one of them was written by Chaol himself.
They take place at the same time. Empire Storms is kind of our main cast, and then Tower of Dawn is Chaol and Nezrin's adventure when they go to the southern continent.
And spoiler alert.
Twice the spoilers in half the time.
All right, let's kick it off here.
The Tower of Healers is in the southern continent. We met a character called Urine. She travels to the southern continent, became the continent's greatest healer.
She wants to go back to the northern continent and help in the war, help heal people.
Just so happens that Chaol, who's broken his spine, is also heading to the southern continent because he needs a healer. And he asks the Grand Kagan, who rules the entire continent, to send his armies north. In the meantime, Chaol decides to get healed. This is where he meets Urine, and Urine doesn't like Chaol because her family was all murdered by the Adelanians. They have this hate-hate relationship. It turns into a love-hate relationship, turns into a love-love relationship.
Yeah, she falls on his dick. That's how she heals him. Urine, while healing Chaol, realizes that she can also defeat the Valg.
Wait, but she heals by banging people, right? So she have to bang the Valg?
Well, he's traveling with his companion, Nezrin. Nezrin is the new captain of the guard. They're kind of lovers, but the relationship's gone kind of cold.
What is this with Chaol?
He only sleeps with women who then improve their station afterwards. So he sleeps with Selena, and then she's, boom, Queen of Terrason. And then he sleeps with Nezrin, and then she, boom, gets with the heir of the southern continent. And then he sleeps with Green, and she's like, whew, defeater of the Valg.
Wow. So Chaol has some sort of magical place in the universe then.
I think it's more after women sleep with him, they think I could do better, and then they reach their full potential.
Oh yeah, they reevaluate their whole life. And Urine, that's a terrible name, by the way. Why would you make it?
Pretty sure it's pronounced Irene.
She discovers she can destroy the Valg. How does that happen?
In a nutshell, she had to heal her own trauma. She kind of had to let go of all that anger, and in that hope and light and joy or whatever, she figures out that's what kills the Valg.
Yeah, I mean, the way that she actually heals them is she puts her hand on their spine or wherever, and she can go into his, I don't know, consciousness. And
sends her magic in.
They're seeing things unravel in this space, which are all their terrible memories.
That kind of makes sense though, because I'm imagining entering Chaol's consciousness and it's just totally a void.
So Nezrin's the other half of the book, and so she kind of gets her flirt on with one of the princes. The prince flies birds, giant birds called rucks. So she learns to fly giant birds, and she's an awesome archer, and so they're all like, oh, you're mythical, and then she sings really well, and they're like, oh my god, we love you, and then she kind of convinces him to join the war.
Technically, her ancestors are from the southern continent, so she feels immediately at home. It's fitting that she falls in love with the prince.
There's one more juicy bit. Maeve, the queen of the Fae, actually a queen of the Valg.
Oh shit.
Empire Storms is on the northern continent, and basically all the rest of our characters are now traveling together.
Yeah, they converge in this book. And there's lots of hookups. Everyone's hooking up with each other. The witches are told to go destroy Rifthold. While this is happening, Aelin finds out that they're about to be sacked. So she tells Rowan, who can turn into a hawk, to go try to save Dorian. And at the same time, Manon is flying into the city, and she ends up saving Dorian. dragon. It gets back to Maas that in that process, she also ended up like killing another witch. So then her grandmother was like, since you killed another witch, we're gonna kill your second. Manon is supposed to behead her second. And as she goes to do it, she actually turns and tries to kill her grandmother and tells her 13 to run.
And while her grandmother is basically killing her, she lets her know that Manon is actually the last Cochrane queen. Her father was a prince of the Cochrane. Her mother was obviously daughter of the Iron Teeth. And so she was supposed to be the one to bring peace between the two witch clans.
So while this stuff was going on with Manon, Aelin tried to go to Terrasen, which is her home country, and they basically reject her.
It's not like the people of Terrasen that rejected her. It's this old man. And they basically are like, we like power, so no thanks.
She's like, well, I'm gonna go get an army together. You guys can think on this because I am gonna be queen. So she's sending out notes to like everyone she knows to like, come please join my army. So then they go to Skull's Bay.
And a lot of pirate Rolfies, a lot of his people have been killed by the Valg. And so she's like, join us or we won't help you. And he's like, we're fine, we're just gonna stay here. And so she signals the Valg so that they come and attack the bay. And then she's like, well, I can help you defend it, but only if you join my army. Lysandra turns into a giant sea dragon, which is symbolic. It heralds the returning of the Messinian, and they win.
She just wanted to blow up the enemy ship. She accidentally had too much. She's too strong and blew up their own ship too. But it all worked out in the end.
Afterwards, she has sex with Rowan on the beach.
Yeah, this is the most important part of the book here.
Making glass, because of course she bursts into flames and there's sand.
All right, we're going to get more into that later. I've got a lot of questions I don't really understand.
That's just going to be our euphemism from now on, making glass.
Also, at this time, we learned that Maeve's armada is just off the continent.
Also, while all this is going on, there's another couple. Caltan, she gives Elide, she gives her one of the word keys. Caltan is like, give this to Selena. Elle is going across the continent to find Selena, but she also wants to find Aelin because that's her queen of Terrasen, and she doesn't realize they're the same person. And Lorcan, who is one of the super powerful Fae, finds her in the wilderness and kind of saves her from some creatures, and they end up basically banding together. They both end up looking for Aelin, and they kind of have like a little bit of a love story starting.
There's more battles. Aelin, she gets all these messages from dead ghost people that she needs to find the lock, because the lock apparently is how you close the word gates with the keys in them. They meet this army of Ilkin, which they used to be humans, but they've been transformed into these like winged death creatures that are really hard to kill. Elide and Lorcan meet them just as this is happening, and Aelin just lets out all of her fire magic and burns them all. Afterwards, she's like pretty much out of magic. They have a really heartfelt reunion with Elide. She gets the keys, so now she has 2 keys. They're all going back to the shore where their boats are when an armada shows up. Oh shit, everyone's freaking out, and Aelin's just like, no big deal. And they're like, why aren't you freaking out? Turns out it's her bestie, Anvil Briarcliff. Manon ends up with Aelin.
Manon and Dory have some time together.
Michael getting in on the spies. Then Maeve shows up and attacks Aelin's new armada with Maeve's superior armada. Rowan goes and convinces like a third of the ships, who are all his cousins, because when Fae live forever, like everyone's your cousin, I guess. And he convinces all of them to turn on Maeve. Lysandra's a sea dragon again, and so that helps. And so they actually win this battle of the armadas.
So Manon and Aelin go into this mirror. It's like a witch mirror or magic mirror. They don't really understand what it is. They go into this mirror while the armadas are fighting. They watch what happens with Elena, what happened previously when they tried to fight the Valg. Elena kind of like messed up. They were like, we will give you another chance to defeat the Valg eventually. Someone's gonna have to sacrifice themselves to become the lock. And Aelin realizes that that's her. She's supposed to basically die to send all the Valg back to their own world and like save her own world. It could be her, or Dorian also came from the same line. So it could also be him.
Why can't it just be Chaol?
And then the mirror just like spits them out on the beach with Elide and Maeve.
Yeah, basically at this point, Maeve fights against Aelin, but Aelin's already pretty spent, and eventually decides that she's just going to sacrifice herself, turn herself over to Maeve in order to save Elise. Really hands over the word stones to Manon while she and the lead get away. Aelin gets trapped in a big metal box.
An iron coffin.
That's
Well,
pretty
actually, it
cool.
ends with Rowan crying on the beach, like, "Where's my wife?" Because they got married in
Oh
secret.
yeah, they got married. Oh, we forgot about another marriage that
Oh.
happened. Chaol and
Dang.
Irene are also married.
This is where we realize that Aelin's been keeping secrets again. So she married Rowan, who she figured out is her mate. And then Maeve reveals that Rowan's, who he thought was his mate, she faked that. She marries him so that there'd be a king of Terrasen. She tells Lysandra that Lysandra's going to have to pretend to be her and rule as Aelin. Then her cousin from Gwendolyn, who was the Armada shipbreaker, he shows up with a whole bunch more ships. I got her letter. Where is she? And then the Mute Masters, everyone from the assassin place shows up, and they're like, "Hey, we're here for Aelin." And basically, like, she just gets this huge army, and she's shipped off in an iron coffin, and no one knows.
The last piece of the puzzle here, Chaol helped save one of the king's kids who's been taken over by a vow, because the king commits like 1,000 ships and 1,000 trucks to head north to also join Aelin's army.
Let's just do ratings. Let's start with Katie.
Empire Storms, I give a 5. I loved it, and there's spice. And Tower of Dawn, I'll give a 4.5
Okay.
because it's a lot of Chaol. It's a lot of Chaol. It's the world is really interesting, and I really loved Nezrin's story. It had a lot of cultural aspects and fantasy building.
Christine, how about you next?
Tower of Dawn, I gave a 5, and Empire of Storms a 4.5. Empire of Storms was great, but sometimes I'm just like, I just really liked Tower of Dawn's story. I thought it was wrapped up really nicely, and I hated Chaol before this, and then I ended up really liking his story and Nesrin's story too. And the Southern Continent was just, like Katie said, it was really magical and like cultural. I found myself wanting to read that more in the tandem read than Empire of Storm.
Well, we need a tiebreaker here. Michael, what do you think about this?
I give a Tower of Dawn a 4 and Empire of Storms a 3.5. Tower of Dawn was just better. It's a much more concise story. I didn't really mind the Chaol parts because I like Irene as a character a lot. I'm a sucker for the history of the Ottoman Empire. So like this whole continent, this like weird neo-Ottoman Empire. I wasn't really drawn in by the move from battle to another battle to another battle. It just felt like they're just moving the plot along.
These are some pretty good books, sounds like. If I could read, I might try them, but I'm not going to do that. Finally, the weather report.
Yep, so we've been hearing some pretty wild and crazy reports of the weather from these two books. Katie, let's go to you.
Thanks, Michael. Just want to start by saying, pack your sunscreen. We're going traveling. First, we have at the beach, expect lightning, getting glass in our sand. Then we're going to go to the desert, and you would think it'd be a dry heat, but no, it's a nice, moist heat in the desert. And then we're headed back up the coast. It might be nighttime, but we're going till dawn, so you'll need the sunscreen too. For more details, we'll go to our field reporter, Christine.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, I took some tallies of all the events here that has happened, just to give you a little bit more detail into what Katie's saying. Rowan and Aelin, we got one really good spice scene, and then a couple other times where it's like mentioned, but it's not like explicit. Chaol and Irene, same thing. We get one instance of a nice explicit spicy scene, and then a couple other times where it's just kind of mentioned.
Question, was Chaol healed at the time, or was he still in a wheelchair?
Yeah, he could sort of walk, but it didn't matter. He could have done it and still in a wheelchair.
Okay, all right.
They made that very clear.
They made that clear, yeah. Manon and Dorian, they're a little hot and dirty, just quick little action scenes, but they do have an explicit scene and then a couple other times apparently where they're interacting intimately. Lorcan and Elide have like a half scene, like it gets interrupted. And same with Nesrin and Sartak.
That's more than all the other books combined. Wow, it all paid off, I guess.
Should we do best sex scene?
Yeah, but favorite sex scene.
Yep, do it.
Mine's Manon and Dorian's. It's a little dark. I like the dark romance.
It's got to be Aelin rowing on the beach. They've just completed this massive battle, and then they make glass all night. They've like permanently marked the beach. Everyone will know what's done here tonight.
Palm trees are like blown away.
I guess I'll have to pick the other one then. I'll pick Chaol and Irene.
Dang it, that was going to be mine. Let's drink, talk, learn then.
This is how to make realistic fantasy maps. Because if you're going to write a fantasy book, you want to make sure it's like absolutely scientifically real.
Oh my
So
God.
step one.
Sorry.
is
Did
to
you
get
see
your
the bottom right corner? Go back, go back. Christine, look at the bottom right.
Yeah, actually, yeah, bonus points if you can name all these maps.
This one looks like England and Ireland and probably part of maybe, Europe over there in the bottom right.
Middle Earth is in the top left. Prithian's in the bottom right. The other two maps don't appear labeled. So.
Yeah, so top right is Westeros from Game of Thrones. You'll notice that actually, this is actually a common theme when making maps. Is a lot of people just end up making the UK over and over again. So you see Prithian and Westeros just look exactly like the United Kingdom. And the one on the bottom left is Faerun from Dungeons and Dragons, which looks a lot like Middle Earth, which really just looks like the western shore of Europe, which is another very common theme for maps. Okay, so if you're going to make a realistic fantasy map, you've got to start with your plate tectonics. So if you imagine you have your piece of paper out and you're going to make like your own fantasy version of the map, what you want to start out by doing is draw out like just some random shapes, like kind of square, circular shapes. Make some some like actual plates, and then draw arrows on them and like give them directions that you want them to move, and label them some of them continents or oceans. Probably more of them oceans than continents, and then fill in the continent ones with like a lighter pencil, so that you can like figure out like how these continents are moving. And basically, what you want to do is that each of these like continental boundaries or plate boundaries, if it's like two of them combining together, that's where your mountain ranges are going to show up. And like when they're separating, you're going to have like valleys or maybe rifts or underwater trenches. And if you're out in the ocean and you've got like two oceanic plates combining, that's probably where you're going to find like island chains or maybe like hot spots like Hawaii or something. So very important, as this lays the foundation for your elevation and terrain. Once you've got your mountains labeled, what you want to come through is maybe with like a lighter color pencil or something, you kind of like shade out contours of like how the elevation is changing. So you have an idea like, okay, just off the mountains, like this will be the hilly area. That way you don't just put like a basin like right next to your mountains, followed by hills, followed by something else. Like it needs to make sense elevation wise. And this is some good examples. There's some good software that can do this for you too, but it's like totally possible to hand draw this. So generally you want to go mountains, then hills, then valleys, then you're finally at the ocean. Step 3, put in your rivers. Once you've got your mountains and you have your whole like elevation and terrain contours, you start your rivers like up at the mountains and then move them perpendicular to like how you've labeled your elevation contours. If you find certain spots in your map where you've got like an elevation minima, you put in your lakes around there, and make sure you always have only one river coming out of your lake, because if you had two rivers coming out of your lake, over time your lake would end up draining to the point where it would still only be one river coming out. Marshes and deltas are actually one of the like the most common error that you see people make on their maps. They just have these like random, just like strings of rivers flying out everywhere, but these like just random like spider webs of rivers really only happen near the ocean at really low elevation levels that have stayed constant for a long time. We'll see some examples of this in some of the maps from these books. Step 4, this is probably the most important part, is getting your ocean currents, climate, weather, and biomes correct. I've got a couple charts here and links to videos that explain some of this, but basically if you assume an Earth-like planet, you're going to have roughly 5 layers or 5 different levels of these alternating clockwise ocean currents. And these will determine your precipitation and temperatures for different places on your continents, which you could then plug into tables in this Köppen climate classification system that tell you, given your latitude, longitude, precipitation, and temperature, and proximity to either hot or cold air currents and elevation, will tell you roughly what the biome should be. So you can color that in on your map with a colored pencil or something. Finally, step 5, civilization. Make sure you put your cities not in the middle of just a random place or in the middle of a desert. Put them next to rivers, next to oceans, at the crossroads of rivers and oceans, at the crossroads of multiple rivers. That's why, if you've got major cities and you want to add more cities, right in between them is a perfect place to put a city. You can imagine like a road where there'd be trade between the cities. This picture explains a pretty common issue that people do. They'll like draw out their map and then they'll divide up their area into countries, and they're either too straight or they don't make sense. Country like boundary lines will always follow like rivers, mountains, other defensible positions. This is just how civilizations, countries, and nations develop. So we're going to look at Sarah Maas's Aurelia here. Wait, she actually has 2 maps of Aurelia. So this is the version that's in the first book and this last book that we read, but isn't in the middle of the book. Like in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th books, we have this map, and this is what's on our website. But the major issue is here in the like southeast side around Elway, they've got this like grasslands here with this spider web of rivers that seem to be like coming down from the mountain and then spreading out into the valley in like a spider web pattern. But like the rivers are just going the completely wrong way. So she got rid of that for the like 2nd, 3rd, and 4th book, but then brought it back for the 5th book. That's really that's the first major issue. She's got Rifthold right. Rifthold is here in like the center right. It's right next to the river and the ocean of a river coming down the mountain that's like coming through this like mountain pass. So it's an extremely important defensible position, perfect place to put the capital of your empire. If we go a little bit further to the west, we'll see these jungles, this jungle of Moria and the Bogdano jungle. I don't think they have gone to any of these places in the book, so I guess there's 1 book left to go to these, but like climate-wise, it just makes no sense why we've got this just like temperate climate over here to the east, and at the exact same latitude, we've got jungles separated by the Western Wastes. Now, to be fair, the way she like created these Western Wastes, there's like a magic curse in this land, but that would seem to imply that this whole area was jungle beforehand. So it's interesting, but probably not scientifically realistic. And then even even wilder is just north of this jungle of Moria is the frozen wastes. Like, could you imagine going from like, if you're like, it'd be like if you're like up in Russia, it's like you're Russia, and then just south of that isn't Afghanistan, it's like the jungle.
That'd be sweet.
So it's possible that this mountain range here in the northwest side is causing like some crazy like precipitation, like air circulation that's creating just the right conditions for this jungle to exist, but it can't also have this frozen waste in the same spot too. So everything else is actually like pretty interesting, makes a lot of sense, but it's this like spider web pattern of rivers and the jungle next to the frozen waste that's really thrown off the realism for this one. Now, the southern continent, this is a really cool example of a map. I think she got someone to like really spend some time and design this and put in lots of detail. Makes a lot of sense. We've got mountains coming out of the rivers. We've got deltas where they should be. It's a pretty like open desert continent, but so it's like, I guess mostly filled with desert, and it's got 1 big major road. But yeah, this makes sense. It's pretty cool looking. Now, if you're really a big time overachiever and you want to make like the ultimate fantasy universe, you can start, and I've actually found like there's people that will do this for real. You can create your own solar system. You can build your own sun, and do all the calculations and figure out how far away, like how close or how far away from the sun you want your fantasy planet to be. You can make it like a really, really hot by moving it close to the sun, or by making it like a super large sun. Really interesting.
The Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, this is in astrophysics. The Goldilocks zone is the zone that Earth and maybe Mars are kind of in our solar system, where life could conceivably exist. You're not so close that you're your planet just burns to a crisp, and you're not so far away that everything freezes. It's just right. And if you want to go super far, you can go the Tolkien route and create your own language so that your cities all like share like a common grammar or syntax together. And if you're so inclined, here's resources online for making the best maps. Really cool little communities here of absolutely insane people who spend thousands of hours making really cool fantasy maps that only 2 or 3 people will ever see.
Well, that was amazing. I want to go. I think I'm going to go make one. Sarah J, if you're watching this, next book you might want to consult with our boy here.
So I did Throne of Glass characters as D&D creatures. So I fully built out all the characters as D&D characters that you can play with. And if you guys want to, we could play. Michael made an encounter if you guys want to play later. Okay. So just real broad overview when you're making a character. There's like a couple big parts. One is the class, that kind of is the character's job or their abilities. Next is the race, which is like their species. Then their background, which gives their origin story and some personality traits. And then you can add features or feats that are just like extra abilities that are specific to a character. Each character also has an alignment, which kind of directs what kind of actions they do. So each character is either lawful, neutral, or chaotic. And then they are also either good, neutral, or evil. So there's some combination of that too. Okay, so I made characters for each of these people, and I don't have time to go through all of them. So you guys can pick. Who do you want to see? Or I can try to go through all of them, and we probably wouldn't have time to play the encounter, but it's up to you.
Wait, so we're picking who we're gonna. I'm Chaol. I picked Chaol.
Okay, I knew you would. All right.
Pick Manon.
I bet Chaol's awesome.
Chaol, aka Lord Westjall. That's his character name. His race is a Goliath. Goliaths are from cold mountainous regions like Chaol. They have big, powerful builds. They're very athletic despite that, and they have strong endurance, which Chaol has shown. He's been knocked down a bunch of times. We forgot to tell you, Clayton, but he broke his spine a second time.
What? Whoa. Okay, well.
But he got back up.
It was so mean. They're just like, the Valk just like, I'm going to get you right in the back again.
They're good like that. His class, I actually multi-classed him, so that means he has 2 classes. First is a paladin, which paladins are very driven by an oath. So his oath is to the crown or to Dorian. He has interception fighting style, meaning he tries to take the brunt of attacks from other people, which we see he like constantly is throwing his body in front of people. And during his action, he gets extra attacks because he's so good. But then after his injury, he has to learn how to fight while being in a chair or even mounted on a horse. And so he multi-classes into a fighter cavalier style. And then his background, I made him a knight because he's like technically chivalrous, I guess, and loyal. I made him lawful neutral. So he, based on his knighthood, he really identifies with responsibility. It's his duty to respect authority. And his bond, as is very evident, loyalty to his sovereign. You can tell from this, his biggest things are his strength and his constitution, but he's not very smart and he's not very charismatic. That's these stand for strength, intelligence, dexterity, wisdom, constitution, and charisma. But he's got pretty good max hit points, so you can hit him over and over again, and he comes back. And he's a level 10, so like halfway.
Sweet. Okay, I feel good about my choice.
Yeah, and for features, he is durable, as we've talked about, and he's a great weapon master. So he like knows how to fight with a bunch of
Great weapon master. Oh my gosh, he's so OP.
I'm gonna be the tank.
there's more tanks, but you can be Chaol. All right, Manon was the next one. I love Manon. All right, Manon, aka Witchling. Her race is a tiefling. Tieflings, their ancestor at some point made a pact with a demon, and now all of their offspring look kind of demon lizard-like. Her ancestor made a pact with Beelzebub. Beelzebub, like the vow, likes to corrupt others, make them weak, turn them to their side. With this, she gets dark vision, and she has some inherent spells that can poison or weaken her opponents. I made her a ranger, specifically a Drake Warden. Rangers are deadly hunters, and Drake Wardens fly dragons. Well, technically drakes, but at a high enough level, they can turn into a wyvern, which is what she does. They have favorite enemies, which for her would be like the Cochrans. Dual fighting style, because she fights with her wind cleaver, and she does have some basic magic. Her background is as an outlander because she was exiled from the wastes, and her alignment is lawful evil. So she, values honor. That's the lawful part. If she dishonors herself, she dishonors the clan. And evil, she thinks that the strongest are meant to rule. Another part of the outlander is glory. They must earn glory in battle for themselves and their clan, with the outfit with her. She's a pretty well-rounded character. She is a level 14, which is high. She's been alive for 100 years, so that makes sense, but she's got room to grow. And her features are athlete, so like she can move and jump and do things really quickly. And infernal constitution, which is a tiefling feature where she's immune to a lot of damage types. All right, Michael, which one did you want?
I don't know. Let's look at Lysandra.
Ooh. Lysandra, aka Lady of Caravir, is a shifter. That's her species or race. Specifically a swift stride. They kind of lean towards the feline animals, and they're known for their speed. And while they're shifted, they have enhanced physical abilities. So she's stronger and faster, things like that. Her class is a druid, specifically Circle of the Moon, because they're very connected with nature and animals and can shift using wild shape to any animal species. So she's very shifty. And then her background is an urchin because she grew up poor on the streets. She's got that street cred. I made her chaotic good. And with urchin, chaotic kind of aligns with change, which fits with the shifter. People go up, other people go down. Change is the nature of things. And one of the bonds listed under urchins was, I sponsor an orphanage to keep others from enduring what I had to endure. So that's like her and Evangeline. Evangeline? Maybe that's her name. You can tell, again, pretty well-rounded. She's a level 10 because she's not been shifting for a while, but she's a pretty strong shifter, especially when we compare her to her uncle. So she's kind of like halfway at her potential. And for features, we have actor, which she's gonna need if she's gonna act like Aelin, and savage attack, because that girl goes hard and then vomits a lot afterwards.
These are awesome, by the way. I really want to play this, but
Can we go ahead and look at Aelin? Why not? Like,
Yeah,
she's like the main character here. Let's just check her out.
Yeah. Okay. Aelin, aka Fireheart. So she's a half elf.
Is that her in the game?
Yeah, this is her character. Elves are like the closest to fae that we get. There's actually a fae species or race in D&D, but they're like way different, so it's closer to elves. So she's half elf. They're very charismatic. They have dark vision. There's a specific variant where she can have elf weapon training, which fits with her background. Sorcerers are one of the classes where the character is born with inherent magic that came from some higher power. So in this case would be like Mala. And specifically within Sorcerer, I made her a pyromancer for obvious reasons. Her background is faceless. And basically that means that you have a disguise or like a persona, a second persona. And when you're one of them, people don't recognize that you're the other. And then she's also a chaotic good. Her ideals are confusion, deception is a weapon, strike from where your foes won't expect, which I thought was like 100% what happened in this book. I made her level 14 because she's basically been training since she was 8, even before then. And she's super powerful, but she does still have room to grow. Her highest ability modifiers are charisma, followed by intelligence. Got some pretty good max hit points there. And then for features, she's an inspiring leader. She like gets everyone to show up. And then I added mobile because she, as we know, can run faster than a horse.
Nice callback. This is really cool.
Yeah, this
I
is
so
sweet.
much fun doing this.
I legitimately think we should, like, on a future episode, just play this.
So if we want to play, you can pick any of those characters. I have them fully built, and then we would download this app, and I could share that character to you through that app.
We should do that at some point. That looks awesome. Great job.
Katie, that was an insane amount of work.
That was awesome.
If you've never made a D&D character before, like this is just an absurd amount of time.
Yeah. I mean,
doing all that 10 times.
So I have always thought being a travel agent would be fun. So I put together a 7-day guided tour of the Southern continent. So yeah, let's get started. Here's the itinerary that I put together for the week. We are going to start in Antigua. Am I saying that right? Antigua? We'll refer to it as Antigua, which is the kind of capital city there. So we'll start there for a few days and get to explore a few different things. And then we'll move on to the Ascara Oasis. And we will kind of finish up our week in the Tandem Mountains before we head back to our port city to leave. So day 1 in Antigua, everyone's going to be arriving by boat, so kind of at different times probably, depending on where you left the northern continent. And you're going to get settled into palace rooms. This is a luxury week, okay? So you're going to get settled into the palace. You'll have some free time the first day, since everyone's in at different times, to just explore the palace and grounds. That should be plural. And then, or you can just explore the grounds too. That's fine. Then in the evening, we're going to do a welcome dinner in the palace hall, and you'll get to meet all the royals as well. So day 2 is when our week really starts. We're going to start with breakfast in the palace hall. You will get breakfast throughout the week. And we're going to start with a workout class in the mornings. We're going to do self-defense with the healers. Get that blood pumping. And then in the afternoon and evening, we're going to do a guided city tour. Get to explore the shops and the town, restaurants for lunch and things like that. And then we'll meet up again to do a group dinner at Chaol and Irene's favorite, also only spot that we know of. It's not named in the book, so we're going to have to kind of try to find it, which is kind of fun too. And then in the evening, when we go back to the palace, it's going to be haunted house night. So,
oh God.
Ooh, spooky.
Be awoken by a valid prince. We're not sure. Make sure you're hunkered down, and you might have to use some of that skills you learned in your workout class.
But can we have a Bass cat lead the tour?
Well, those come into play in the next day. So day 3, we're going to tour the I always said it as the Torre. I don't know if that's right, or is this just tower? Anyway, so we're gonna again just have breakfast in the palace hall, and then we're gonna make our way over to the Torre. We're gonna do a guided history tour that will include seeing the library, and you can pet a fast cat. Notice the asterisks. There will be extra fees for that if you want to do that. It's a good photo op though. You can put it on your Insta. We'll climb the stair tower, get some cool views up there, and get to see kind of the day-to-day things that the healers do. And you'll also get a chance to tour the womb, where you can ring bells. Again, please notice the asterisks. There are extra fees for that. And you can upgrade to the spa package for the full womb experience as well. You get to actually soak in the tubs and all that good stuff. So in the evening, we are going to go to a group dinner at the Palace Hall, followed by and dancing.
But you'll have to pay extra for that.
You don't have to. That's included. Only if you want to pet the cat. Day 4 is going to be a day trip. We're going to go to the Ascara Oasis, which is one of the princess's favorite place to go. So in the morning, we're going to do some horseback lessons, and then we'll do an actual guided horseback ride to the Oasis. Please pay no attention to the other name on that picture. I don't know where that came from. It's hard to keep all this stuff, trademarked correctly.
Wait a minute, is this a real tour?
In the afternoon, you'll have free time, lots of free time, so you can either enjoy the pools but in the Oasis, you can explore some ancient ruins nearby, or you can just chill out and bake in the sun if you want. In the evening, we're going to have a group dinner provided by the pools. Be careful not to fall in while you're eating. That can happen. We may need to sign a liability form for that, actually, now that I think about it. And then we're going to travel to the Tandem Mountains that evening, so that we'll be prepared to start our journey on day 5. Day 5, we are going to wake up in the mountains, so we'll have caves for everyone to stay in. You'll get a continental breakfast this morning, and then we'll take you to an archery class. So get some blood pumping again that morning. In the afternoon, we're going to do a ruck tour. So we get to fly on one of the rucks and see the neighboring mountains. And in the evening, you can see the picture of the ruck there in the bottom right corner. In the evening, we are going to do dinner and storytelling entertainment that'll be provided at the community fire pit in the main cave. Day 6, we're going to go to Chaol Fells. First, for your morning and breakfast, you'll actually be hunting with your ruck. So just, it'll be an eventful morning that day. We can only do for one morning, sorry. Late morning to afternoon, we're going to go do an ancient ruins tour and finish up at Chaol Fells, which is a scary place if you haven't heard of it, but there are lots of these Stygian spiders, which you can take. There's another photo op there. We will have a liability form required for that, absolutely. Make sure you don't get too close. But it'll be a fun day. The rest of the ancient ruins will be neat to see as well. We'll stop at some fire towers and things like that. And then in the evening, for those who survive, we're going to have dinner and singing at the community fire pit. So this night we'll have singing instead of storytelling. End of our trip, very last day, we're going to pack up and travel back to Antica. We'll have our final goodbye lunch with everyone at the palace before folks start leaving on their own boats back to the northern continent. So hopefully this is a good reprieve from the war that's going on up there, and you got to enjoy yourself some. And oh, I don't know if I mentioned the price, but it is one chest full of jewels. So thanks for everyone listening, and we hope to see you soon.
I do have a question. Will there be vegetarian options for the morning flight with the ruck breakfast?
You can ask them to take you to a berry patch where you can eat berries that morning, but the ruck will still have to hunt for its breakfast, unfortunately, which will not be vegetarian. So we can maybe accommodate that if that's too much for you.
Okay, just another chest full of gold then.
Yes, it will be an extra fee if you require a vegetarian rock.
I have a question too. When my cousin came through on this trip, she got to see Nezrin singing. Is Nezrin gonna be here on this trip?
Yeah, she unfortunately has left to go to war. But if she comes back, then we will definitely have that feature. Just depends on when you come on your trip. If you come after the war, there's a good chance that you might be able to see Nesrin singing.
Christine, you would make an excellent travel agent. I just want to say.
You would crush it.
So awards. Let's see awards.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Just most fun. I'm gonna say Katie's. Katie's just most fun. Michael, you know you always win this sort of award, but just most scientifically accurate. Christine, yours, I think you win most luxurious, most likely to actually become a shell corporation or some sort of scam business. Great episode today. What is our next book again?
Last book of the series, Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. Almost
Or
rhymes.
if it's as spicy as these, could be Kingdom of Ass.
What else? Oh yeah, people subscribe to our podcast. Look
Yeah,
it
like
up.
us. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube.
I'm gonna go.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, you
Bye,
guys
guys.
too.
All right,
Bye.
See ya.
bye guys.